Good morning, or good day, depending on where you're at, everybody. This is Dr. Antonio from Still Point Ayurveda here in Philadelphia. And I wanted to continue my topic from last week in discussing this time of year and how people tend to become sick or ill or having a sense of like not feeling the best. And in Ayurveda, this is the time of year, the windows of transition, the times of year that the seasons transitioning from one to the other, which is called Ritu Sandhi. And Ritu Sandhi in Ayurveda is the seasonal transition, where people tend to become sick in general, unless they're following proper diet or dietary guidelines in alignment with their constitution and in alignment with the season. But most importantly, in Ayurveda, we understand that Ritu Sandhi, the seasonal transition, is a nimitta karana, or an instrumental cause of dosha, which are the biological humors that tend to go out of balance. Ritu Sandhi is one of the primary causes that can cause the doshas, the doshic load, to increase inappropriately and then cause a compromise in health. We recognize in Ayurveda and we want to acknowledge that when this seasonal transition occurs throughout the year, which is basically 3 times a year from around January to February, May to June, September to October, and I'll say ish because we have to now account for the climate issues that are looming over us, undeniably. And so, an understanding of these basic junctions of the year where might continue the dietary lifestyle that they've been maintaining for a long period of time without acknowledging the seasonal transition is where people can become ill. And it's important to be mindful of this process so that in order to prevent illness, I have to adjust my tie. In order to prevent illness, we have to address this, address the context of our health in relationship to the environment, to the season, to the time of life that we're in, the time of day that we're in. We can follow the patterns of these natural cycles to see our relationship to them, within them, and because of them. Because there is a sense of connection to all of it, right? We are part of nature. And so typically we do a type of cleansing, or we can call it an alpa shodhana, or really uttama shodhana, which is either ranging from like a low end purification to high end purification, which would be panchakarma, which definitely requires a very extensive amount of effort, discipline, commitment, and time in the process. There's no quickies when it comes to panchakarma. Otherwise, we do alpa which is like a light cleansing just to basically remove any excess aggravation coming from foods, coming from patterns and lifestyle, whether over-exercising, exercising at the wrong times of day, or staying up late, or these kind of things. And so we do a light cleansing where we're resetting the system. Last week I spoke about resetting because it's a new year, either starting from the point of the winter solstice as the sun starts to rise a little bit more in the atmosphere, increasing light. So it's a reset to the year that way. Or there's a resetting to the new year, January 1st. Either way, it's not coincidental. This is the time of year as we're transitioning to reset the digestive system so that it doesn't carry things from the previous season into the current season and or into the next. The body is a historical system and requires consistency for health. So it's important that we are aligned with these factors and using the body as a gauge. We can use the body as a gauge by determining, this season I feel a little bit better, or this season makes me feel worse. From the Ayurvedic clinical perspective, those are cues that tell us what's happening in the physiology that will determine the course of treatment required for an individualized protocol. Yes, there is no one size fits all. These group cleanses, these massive group experiences to detoxing, it negates and neglects to honor the person as an individual because there is no one size fits all, even within the context of Ayurveda. It's important to understand each person, where their digestive system is, where they're at in their time of life, their state of mind, time of the year, where the year is that they're living. All these things have to be factored in. It's not just everyone should do a 30-day cleanse and it should be this one particular item of food and this one particular, basic formula like triphala or something. This is not proper Ayurveda. Ayurveda is very individualized, taking into account so many different things. I like to call it the Rubik's Cube effect, where you're getting the Rubik's Cube and ideally most of the colors on the same side as much as possible. And that just accounts for all the different factors of lifestyle and dietary practices to create that sort of unison protocol that's individualized for you. So when we're looking at this time of year, cleansing is important. Upavasa, which is a type of fasting, may or may not be relevant to some people. Not everyone should fast. It's actually inappropriate for certain people, especially Vata predominant people, to fast because there's depletion already. So why deplete more? It does not make any sense. And then we come into understanding disequilibrium. Disequilibrium. So disequilibrium, we're looking at like, oh, I feel more out of balance now that we're transitioning and the weather is kind of wonky, which in most places it's very wonky, extreme weather patterns, etc. And so that creates a disequilibrium. And in this equilibrium, we want to create equilibrium by honoring the day. What does the day look like? Weather is fluctuating, temperatures are fluctuating from easily 40 degrees to 70 degrees in some places, and it could be as quickly as within 4 or 5 days. This is really, really unsettling and very difficult. So it has to be honored per day as much as possible within the context of the season and your constitution and any pre-existing conditions. And then we come into the actual major sickness where people are just carrying more and more of the doshas not processed properly, and this is going to perpetuate illness. So of course, this time of year, especially if there's kapha issues or sluggishness in digestion, that things will slow down. Upper respiratory issues. We have these four rotating illnesses. The RSV, the cold, the flu, the COVID. This is a sign of the times. It's not just coincidental. We're looking not only at the individualized pathology and pandemics and things like that, we're looking at this global experience of what's happening on this planet, how are we misaligned with nature, and what can we do to realign ourselves. Ayurveda is this. Ayurveda is what we can do. It has written extensive scientific materials, volumes of amazing information that Ayurveda teaches us what we can do to align with health in a better way. Not even just now, but long term. When you're seeing a clinician, we're trained to not only just address the immediate issues at hand, but also look with foresight 20, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, how we can prevent whatever you just had or you're experiencing now later. Not just get rid of this thing right now, this symptom, but we look at the past and present and future as Ayurvedic doctors. We look at where did this person come from? How did these issues accumulate enough to produce this sort of outcome of a disease? So that's the present moment, the past bringing us to the present moment. And then what can we do to alleviate the person and their suffering moving forward? What can we do to reduce the doshas, reduce the imbalances, the harm that's happening to the body because of disease, so that we can have the person experience life in a more content way without as much ailments as possible. And yes, we are all aging. Yes, it's part of the process. Dying is part of the process. Ayurveda knows that as the science of life, the word Ayurveda in and of itself suggests that death is also a constituent of life. And so yes, we're going to die, but we don't have to fall apart. We don't have to pick up all the pieces. And in Western medicine, as we follow the data, the statistics, we see that with age, on average, the person that's over 60 has around 5 medications. We don't see the people above age 60 decreasing in medications. With each decade, we see them increasing with medications. And now, to much of my surprise, when I was watching the news the other day, I saw that on the news they were saying, more and more adolescents and teenagers are experiencing more medications as well, on average 2 to 3 medications for this and for that and for anxiety and for focus. And then now there is also this overdosing on fentanyl and all these things. This is a sign of the times. It's very, very sad. And once you're starting with medications, the list continues to grow. But in Ayurveda, we don't need this. We don't want this. We do our best to make sure that this doesn't become a factor of truth, a reality, as much as possible. So these are things to consider. I will be back next week to expand upon and expound upon these topics and other topics that are very interesting and relative to the times. And I'm always happy to be of service to the community. I love working with people and experiencing everyone's journey because it's very specific and it makes my day exciting. I love working with everybody of all ages, and I'm always open to having new patients near and far. I do telehealth, I do in person, all of these great things, and I'm here to be of service to you all. So feel free to private message me if you're interested in working with me. My website is stillpointayurveda.com. Have a great, amazing Monday. Namaste, and see you all soon.